Well, Steve, thanks for joining us. Always appreciate it. Good to talk to you. Well, maybe start with, I think we've had some big changes in DC. Obviously, a lot going on with CCA and its members. I guess, what's a general overview on kind of what we've seen so far in terms of the new administration and the new FCC leadership?
Yeah, well, first let me say thank you. There are broadcast partners, so thank you for being here, and
no
thank you
problem
for making sure everyone hears what's going on here.
It's still my favorite show. I tell everybody I know this is still my favorite show. It's been for years, back in the old RCA days. I love the show. So
well, thank you.
Anyway, yes.
Thank you. Oh, now you asked a pretty tough question.
I didn't mean
there.
to start off with a big one like that, but just an overview on what you've seen so far, I guess.
Well, we've seen a lot of action at the FCC. We've seen a lot of action on the Hill.
Yeah.
A lot of discussion. A lot of legislation was sort of stymied with the debate over net neutrality.
Yep.
Mobile now has moved out of the Senate. It looks like it's moving in the House.
Yep.
That's going to help us on some of the infrastructure issues and the build-out issues. I think we've made some progress on spectrum accessibility. And then we have a new chairman that is doing a lot of things. Number one, he very early on he did the Mobility 2 Fund, and I think came with a rational, reasonable transition plan for the legacy program. Now we have $4.53 billion over 10 years for unserved and underserved areas.
Yep.
So I think that gives some certainty to their small carriers serving rural markets.
Yep.
And I hope that, and I think that the consumers will actually see some enhancement in that, because now they have a plan to get to 4G VoLTE Advanced.
Yep.
So that's all good. The other thing we've been very supportive of Chairman Pai, and quite frankly all the FCC, is the infrastructure plan. His Digital Empowerment Act. He's got some phenomenal concepts in there that I think will speed the location and small cell deployments that will give us an opportunity to get not only to the VoLTE, but get to some of this, what they call wireless fiber capability in the 5G world.
Yep.
So that's going to be critical. In rural America, it gets very, very difficult to densify networks. And even in small regional towns, cities, it's going to be a difficult road to hoe. I testified last week up on the House side in Marsha Blackburn's committee, and boy, I tell you, I was really impressed with her and the entire committee for being focused on how do you get high-speed mobile broadband to rural America. And I think they're serious about getting some work done. So I'm hoping we're going to see some positive things.
And obviously the timing is important too, because I think we all know, these operators, we saw the keynotes today, there's a lot of talk about 5G and fiber and high-speed networks, and for these operators, small guys, to get there, they probably need a little bit of help, because again, a lot of their areas aren't densified, and a lot of this 5G stuff is going to be high bandwidth or high spectrum bands, which are tough to deploy for these guys. So that kind of support is going to be pretty important for these guys moving forward, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you heard today, not only the panel this morning, but also the keynote session from Galton, Achabar from Ericsson. And when he was talking about, the low band and high band spectrum, what he was really saying is he understands that the small carriers can't make the wrong decision, and they want to make sure when they spend the money now to build out 4G Advanced and LTE, that they're not wasting their investment by eliminating their opportunity to get to 5G. And I think this concept of balancing the spectrum to portfolio and getting low band spectrum to actually do the routing and some of the signaling and stuff like that, along with providing some higher band support to get capacity, makes a lot of sense for small carriers. And that's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to figure out, how do I get to 4G LTE VoLTE, but how do I also spend smart so that I don't waste resources that I don't have.
Yeah, that's tough to do for those guys. And again, I know Chairman Pai, I know he's come to some events in the past for you guys. I'm sure he's a little busy right now with what's going on there, but could we expect to see him perhaps in a future show?
I certainly hope so.
Okay.
I talked to him, I guess a week or so ago, and I told him he indicated he had a commitment, in which I understand.
He's a lot going on.
But I told him, I said, we will have another show in Fort Worth, and you will definitely get a letter of invite, and
hopefully we'll see him there.
And hopefully we'll get some other commissioners down there. They had the FCC meeting on the agenda also, and then so I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. Especially in Fort Worth.
Yeah, it makes sense a lot. And then obviously I think we finished up, I know we've talked several times on these interviews about the ongoing incentive auction. I think we're almost to the end now. This might be our last conversation before it ends. I guess as you look at it, what's been your general view on how it's gone in terms of success? I know a lot of people were expecting huge dollar amounts. that might have been a little maybe out of the question because of, again, there's only so much money you can spend on these things. But what's been your view on what you've seen in terms of how it's gone for the mobile guys, for the rural guys out there?
Well, I think we say it's a success, and I don't know if you saw the blog that Rebecca did on the auction, and why was it a success? And I still contend that had we not had a reserve, then there wouldn't be no surety that small carriers could bid and win.
Yeah.
And what we're finding is they came to the table and they bid a significant amount, at least according to the release of the FCC.
Yep.
So a lot of optimism. I've heard, obviously you can't talk specifics, but in a couple of weeks we will be able to. But I think large and small carriers had some really, I think they feel good about it, and I think they're excited about potential of deploying this hopefully less than 39 months. I think the interesting thing today in that one panel was you mentioned price, and I told Eric Graham after it was over from C-Spire, when he said, listen, these small carriers don't have unlimited pockets, and so they look at the two auctions as one auction. He said
AWS-3 and
AWS-3 and the 600 megahertz, and he made a good point. Between the two of them, it's $65 billion, which was about what they thought a super auction would bring. So I think it was the second highest grossing auction in our history. I'm more hopeful that we'll get access to the spectrum and deploy it and get those services out in rural America sooner than 39 months. And there's ways that we can do that. The FCC is working on different deployment scenarios that don't include complicated daisy chain processes, so that we can clear spectrum that is low-hanging fruit.
The easy ones. Get those out of the way.
I hope we can do that.
We'll see how that plays out there. Well, I guess maybe looking forward to the next 6 months till we see you again in Fort Worth.
I hope
What are going to be the big, what's your big focus point in D.C. for you guys over the next 6 months with the new administration, do you think?
Well, the infrastructure infrastructure investment is going to be huge. The siting issues, we've got to be able to deploy the new technology. What good is it if it's sitting on the shelf and not out there in use? So that's a huge issue. Are there enough incentives to invest more in rural America in the infrastructure bills? Most of the legislative products and most of the members in the House and Senate say high-speed mobile broadband in rural America should be part of the infrastructure deployment scenario for the future, the investment for the future. And that's going to be one of our highest priorities, and we're going to stick to trying to make that happen sooner rather than later.
Well, obviously a lot of busy times for you guys in D.C. Definitely appreciate the time. Again, another great show.
Thank you.
Like I said at the beginning, I love these shows, so hopefully we'll see you next.
And hopefully you'll come down. Come down on the 25th. We're going to have some nice networking parties and give everybody an opportunity to maybe reminisce a little about what's happened over the last 25 years.
25-year anniversary for you guys.
It's been pretty impressive, you know.
A lot happened, that's for sure.
So we're looking forward to seeing you there.
That sounds great. Steve, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.